Are Tua Tagovailoa, Mike McDaniel, and Tyreek Hill the root cause of the Miami Dolphins' current cultural issues? We will talk about that, as FS1 implied they in fact were. Plus, we got a lot from Tyreek. I mean, he's singing a different tune, but can you really believe what he's saying? Plus, the cornerback market continues to dry up. The Miami Dolphins continue to stay pat, so we will discuss that as well. Do me the favor, smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new, and let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. It's going to be a touchdown again. Beautiful day to be a Dolphins fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We're back here for another one. Do me the favor as you come through. Please smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. I appreciate each and every one of you taking some time out of your day to tune in and get your latest Dolphins news from Phinside The NFL. All right. First things first, shout out to all of you in the chat. Appreciate all of y'all. Again, smash that like button. I do want to shout out the sponsor of today's video, and that is Clean the World. All right. Clean the World works with over 8,300 hospitality partners to divert their soap bars and plastic amenities from landfills and recycled the collected soap into new bars. By doing so, Clean the World, they help reduce pollution around the world. They save water and they decrease the carbon footprint of thousands of hotels all around the world, while helping to provide improvement to the lives of men, women, and children in communities all over. Since it was established in 2009, Clean the World has distributed over 80 million bars of soap. The organization has diverted 9 million pounds of plastic amenity bottles and over 29 million pounds of total waste from landfills, and helped Clean the World Foundation provide an estimated 17 billion individual hand washes to those in need across the globe. By recycling soap and other discarded hygiene products, Clean the World saves lives with items that traditionally end up in landfills. You can donate or even volunteer to help Clean the World's cause at cleantheworld.org. That's cleantheworld.org. All right, so let's get into a few things I got some opinions about. All right. And let's start off with this. I know a lot has been made about the Miami Dolphins and cold weather, and actually in some of the segments we're going to play today, the cold weather is going to be brought up, but I think it's hilarious when, you remember Deontay Johnson when he refused to enter a game in Baltimore last year? It was 41 degrees, and he says he felt ice cold. And, he said, I wasn't getting into no run plays, no passing plays or nothing. It was cold. End of the third, going to the fourth, they were like, Tay, we need you. I was like, nah, I don't think it's a good idea for me. Like, my legs are already ice cold, and I didn't want to go out there and put bad stuff on film. It's not like I didn't want to go into the game, but leading up to this point, I had been through so much. I told them I'm not finna go in. So I just sat on the bench, and that's when they suspended me. Now, again, I go back to the Kansas City and Dolphins playoff game from just a few years ago, and it was even worse than that. Now, those guys had no choice. They had to go out there and they had to play. But, I mean, this pretty much, this isn't shocking, right? Now, look at where Deontay Johnson has played, like Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Again, the Dolphins being a Florida team, being a Southern team, imagine how they feel going into 41-degree Fahrenheit weather. So, and again, I'm not making excuses. I'm not even justifying their play, but I'm letting you know that the Dolphins aren't the only one team with players on there that don't like playing in cold weather. Deontay Johnson's been on a bunch of cold weather teams in his NFL career, and here he is. He still doesn't like cold weather. I'm telling you, it's a mindset. It really is a mindset. Like Josh Allen thrives in cold weather, but I can guarantee you not every single Bill on that team loves playing in cold weather. It's a mindset. And, it's not everyone has that mindset, right? Like that's just where we're at. Not everyone has that mindset. So, again, I find it funny that, the guy just signed in Cleveland too. Does he think it's going to get warmer in Cleveland? And I mean, look what he said. If you actually listen to what he said, he basically is saying, because you didn't want to bring me until the 4th, he's like, it would have been different if he had been getting warmed up. He had been getting his legs under him, but he clearly hadn't. And so he took issue with being called in the game. They ended up suspending him, and we all know how the rest of that worked out. So I thought that was kind of funny and interesting considering what we've seen this team and how they performed in Miami against cold weather teams. Now, another thing, too, that's come out, according to Mass Live Sports, is multiple Patriots coaches say that their defense will be violent this upcoming season. Quote, we are going to make sure on tape, day in and day out, that people see our violence. There's some physicality there and some violence. We're huge into guys that don't mind playing football. Okay, well, if you guys are all about violent football, what do you call Tua's 7-0 career record against you? That's a massacre. That's violence to the umpteenth degree. And, they're kind of in the same situation we are, where a lot of people want, they want to see it before they believe it in terms of where we're at in the prove it stage. Not very much different for the Patriots. Now, I do, and I've said this, I think the Patriots are going to be ahead of schedule, further ahead of schedule than a team like the Jets. I think if the Patriots have another 2 good off seasons, they could be a really good team under Mike Vrabel. I've said this before. They had a strong draft. If they have 2 more strong drafts and a couple more good free agencies, yeah, okay, then I'd be like, okay, all right. But again, I think we're like 2 years away from that. Do I fear the Pats? No. They can try and be as violent as they want. But when you got a bunch of Nancys trying to be violent, who's really scared of that? Like, let's ask ourselves that. Who's really scared of that? So, listen, all this violence talk, come on. I mean, who's really afraid? Worry about lapping and overpassing the Jets, like, with authority. Right? Like, that's where I'm at. So, yeah, I find that very, very, very funny, honestly. Like, you're just not in a position right now to kind of be talking about, it's kind of like us. Are we in a position to be talking about a Super Bowl in Miami right now? We're trying to win a freaking playoff game. Are we in a position? No. It's kind of like, is it really, are you in a position to tell everyone how violent you're going to be? Or is your position more so you got to go out and show people that violence and make them believe in it? Obviously, where I stand, it's the latter. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. They're starting to write cash. They're starting to write checks in New England that I don't know if their asses can cash. So, that's where I'm at with that thing. I think it's just, I don't even think they should be talking. Kind of like where we're at with a championship. I don't think we should be discussing championship. I think we need to focus on the playoff game and winning a playoff game. So, All right, let's get into this. Now, let's start off, all right? Let's start off with first things first. Now, because it's FS1, I've screenshotted the segment and layered the audio over top of the screenshot, all right? Because if I roll the actual clip, they will come for your boy, all right? So, first things first, and this is the title of this episode. They basically imply that Tyreek, Tua, and McDaniel, how can you believe the culture is going to change when that cast of characters is still there? Basically implying that they are one of the root cause issues when it comes to the Miami Dolphins culture problems. So this is what went down.
How are they doing it?
I'm not sure.
I mean, here's the problem with saying last year we were full of it, this year we're not, when you are 3 days into this year. The problem is evidenced by the sentence itself. Like, that statement might hold a lot more water or mean a lot more week 10 of this season. In a retrospective on what's been different. But how the hell do you know?
Yeah.
And I think the Dolphins have issues in that almost all of their main characters, I think, are flawed actors. So I think Tyreek is not always a serious person, despite being a great player. And
I think that's a fair take.
And I think that when he comes into a team as the highest paid, the champion, the de facto leader, all of that, that's very different than being with Andy Reid and, what became Patrick Mahomes. Because Tyreek was there before Patrick and was excellent, very good already. But Patrick then all of a sudden surpasses him. Kelsey's there, Reid's there. So there's that. Tua is obviously a flawed player in that he just has what I think are, football-wise, fatal flaws, which is he has never shown an ability to excel against excellent teams, and he has never shown an ability to win in the cold. And what at one point was cliche, I think now is a large enough sample to say, no, that's real.
Yep.
And Mike McDaniel's flaw is he needed everything to be good because I don't think, has the ability to switch to disciplinary and tough guy when a team needs it. And so I actually think he's sharp. I like him more than maybe you like him.
I like him. I just think.
But I think that he needs, I think he can be really good if a team is, like, I wouldn't hate it if Andy Reid took a leave of absence. Like, hey, we need someone to run the Chiefs for a few months. I think he'd be great. Like, we kind of principle or Eagles maybe a little different because the Eagles have a little more bombast or, turmoil. But, like, we police ourselves, you know what I mean? We've got the things in place, but that's not what he's got in Miami. And so I just think, I don't know that I buy the culture's total.
So you hear Nick Wright saying he doesn't buy that the culture's changing, and it basically starts with what Bradley Chubb said. I mean, what, you're going to say you're lying one year and now all of a sudden we're supposed to believe you? So, and I agree with that. Now, what he said with Tyreek, to an extent, I pretty much agree with, like, he was brought in here as a former winner, brought in here to be a leader, and, to expand on that, what have I said? It's become more about his legacy with reaching 2,000 yards than it has becoming about getting another ring. When this guy doesn't realize that a ring in Miami, that's going to define your legacy much more than a 2,000-yard season. Okay, that's number one. Now, with what he said with Tua, I do agree with to an extent. Has Tua shown he can beat excellent teams? It's like a yes and no answer. There's been games against really good teams where Tua's shown up, but other units have let us down and we've lost. Right? Buffalo last year. Right? Tua puts up one of the best EPA per dropbacks ever against a Sean McDermott team, but the defense and special teams puts up some of the worst EPA per plays ever against the Sean McDermott team. We lose the game. Don't have a stop in the final 45 minutes by the defense. But then there's games like Houston. Houston went into the playoffs and beat the Chargers, but when we played Houston, Tua was not good. Tua did not show up very well, right? And so it's just like the cold weather argument. How many cold weather games has Tua played? Like, actually think about this. How many cold weather games has his team played? Under Mike McDaniel, under Brian Flores. You know, like, you don't need two hands basically to count that number. And again, all right, I can give you examples. 2022 in the snow in Buffalo, Tua was great. We should have won that game. If Sherfield or Tyreek Hill don't drop the touchdown passes, we win. Our team isn't good in cold weather. It's not just the quarterback. Okay, so he's great in that game. All right, great in Buffalo in 2022 in cold weather. But then he wasn't very good at all against Kansas City. Either was McDaniel. But Tua wasn't good at all against Kansas City in the playoff game in cold weather. So look, I can give you an example of he showed up, but other units didn't show up, and other players didn't show up in cold weather. He played good enough where we should have won. And then I can show you an example of he didn't play good enough in Kansas City. So again, it's a yes and no answer, right? Like, that's where we're at. Now, I don't blame the cultural issues on Tua. I don't blame them on Waddle. Yeah, has Tyreek been a positive impact on our culture? No, at all. But can I even shoulder a ton of blame on Tyreek for the culture? I shoulder the blame for where this culture is at more so on the coaching staff and management. And I'll give you my reasons why. Coaching staff, it starts with Mike McDaniel. All right, you set the precedent. All right, you've let a player like Tyreek Hill get away with murder. Okay? Basically, you let him get away with everything. On the flip side, you know, Jalen Ramsey doesn't like being called out in front of the team. You guys have a conversation and you're totally out on the guy. And to the point where Ramsey don't like you either. So, you know, it's just, there's no consistency with how Mike McDaniel's tried to build a culture in that locker room. But can Mike McDaniel even, and the coaching staff, shoulder all the blame? No. I think Chris Greer shoulders much more blame than any of the people we just named. Chris Greer's been here through Flores. Chris Greer's been here through McDaniel. He's been here through Adam Gase. We had culture issues with Adam Gase, you know? And you could say we had culture issues because we still don't have an identity. You could blame, I think Ross is more so to blame than McDaniel or the players. He was one of the reasons that Parcells got pushed out with his anointment of Mike D and how that ended up impacting things. Like, I keep trying to tell people, this cultural issue is like 20 plus years old. And all you got to do is figure out this. What's the Miami Dolphins' identity? Tell me what their identity is. And speed is not an identity, FYI. What's their identity? When you don't have an identity for 20 plus years, how can you expect to have a championship culture, a winning culture? You don't even know who you are. How can you expect that? That makes no sense. Like, it can even go beyond Ross, but let's go back just to Ross's tenure and it started. Ross and the people he surrounded himself with through the Tannenbaum deserves blame for this. Like, people who aren't even here deserve blame for where we're at. And I talk about this identity. Look at the Ravens under Ozzie Newsome. And Ray Lewis, they found an identity. They've stuck with that. Look at how they've continuously built their offensive line, how they've continuously, doesn't matter who it was, whether it was Gus Edwards, whoever, they've always had a solid running game. Identity. Defensively, they've had an identity. The Pittsburgh Steelers, under Tomlin, they continued to have the same identity they had under Coward and that had been instilled for decades. The Eagles, since Andy Reid was there, look at the identity. Right? Name the quarterback. Vic, Hurts, Wentz, whoever you want to name. They've always had a top offensive line. They've always named the running backs. We got Saquon now, but you can go all the way to back to Deuce Staley and Brian Westbrook. They've always been able to run the football. They've had an identity. Right? T.O. didn't work there because he kind of clashed with that identity and culture. Now, they got to the Super Bowl, but they lost. The Patriots, they built a dynasty on their identity and their culture. You got to have an identity first before you start building out a proper culture. And I've been saying this. And now the problem was, they tried to build this identity from building outside in offensively. And at the wrong time, where the league has turned to, even the top teams are building from the inside out, right? The Bills switched to that. Kansas City is there now after the Bucs lost in the Super Bowl, and they realized how imperative it is to have a top tier offensive line. The Bengals, they haven't got it right, but they've been trying to build inside out too, right? They made a lot of attempts to fix that offensive line for Joe Burrow. And even defensively under McDaniel, how can you expect to have an identity? First year, Boyer. Then you go to Fangio. Now you're on Weaver. This is our best chance to figure out an identity on defense. But Weaver's probably going to get he's probably going to get a head coaching job next offseason. So we'll be right back to trying to figure out a defensive identity. Haven't been able to find, and what's crazy is, and I always go back to this, that unicorn line year, 2016, you had the blueprint right under your nose. You had the unicorn line. You had the answers to how to build your identity right under your nose. And this is probably Chris Greer's biggest F-up. He totally has ignored it. He's totally washed over that. Acted like that time didn't exist. Like, that's the scary thing to me is, you've heard me talk about this identity for quite some time. And I always go back to that. Like, I don't know whether we're talking about blissful ignorance. I don't know whether we're just talking about, arrogance. I don't know whether we're just talking total lack of awareness. But why that identity was never built on that we established with Jay Ajayi and that offensive line in 2016 will always baffle me. Will always baffle me. Like any other GM, I feel like it would have clicked. Okay, this is how we build the team. No. Just totally went away from that, and it makes no sense. So, yeah, people can sit here and blame Tua. They can blame Tyreek. I think McDaniel shoulders more blame than Tyreek or Tua. But I think, Greer and Ross shoulder the most blame. I talk about how many GMs are on their third head coach without a playoff win in any sport, not just football. That's wild. Been in the the common denominator we've come back to is Chris Greer. You've been here for 20 plus years. The whole time we haven't won a playoff game, you've been here. Like, I've talked about this. That losing culture, that loser mentality. He's been here the whole time. Everything that they've turned over, whether, as he was moving up the chain to whether he got to the GM spot, nothing's worked. So, I'm gonna because even I'm like this culture stuff. You guys know how I feel about it. But like show me, stop talking about it and show me. I truly think Ross, listen. I didn't want to say this, but I'm gonna say it. It's pretty sad when I've thought to myself, is this team gonna be better off when Ross goes away? Whether that be him selling the team, whether that be him handing the team over to his daughter, whether that means him expiring, I don't know. But I'm starting to get the vibe that this team, I'm starting to cross that line where this team might be better off when this guy goes. Because he can't surround himself with the right people. Tom Garfinkel's great for the stadium, not for the football team. Brandon Shore is a cap guy, not a football guy. Chris Greer has shown that, he can put together a good roster, but he can't put together a winning roster in terms of playoffs. Collectively, they've shown they haven't been able to get the head coach thing right yet. So, I don't know. I think that's where I'm at with this. Are we going to be better off when we get a new owner comes in here that actually makes right, sound decisions that end up paying off from a management level that trickle down to the coaching staff and the roster? That's because you ask yourself this with and going back to Ross, are you everyone he wants to win, he wants to, well, bro, your actions aren't speaking this. You're giving all the fan base more of a sense that you are okay with mediocrity as long as you're surrounded by your buddies. It's country club atmosphere. Josh Hart says, I blame Eichenberg. Knight says, our culture issue is older than any one of them. I agree. I think our want for a Tyreek style impact made us blind to why Tyreek left KC. This should have been our concern from day one. Tyreek is selfish. I think the thought was, we didn't know what McDaniel was yet. We thought McDaniel, by getting the best of him, out of Tyreek, would reel him in, make him a believer, and turn him into a good soldier. And all it's done is, by him trying to feed him this 2,000 yards, all it's done is feed the ego and feed the self-entitlement. Shout out to Penn, the homie Penn. She went ahead and gifted 5 Phinside the NFL memberships. She grew the Phinside fam. I appreciate you, Penn. And Teddy, Adam, Matt Farms, Flea Firm, and Flaming Finn all were recipients of those. So thank you. So, listen, I know that's not the answer people are going to want to hear. They're going to expect me to throw these guys under the bus. But back to what Knight said, our culture issues are older than any one of them. And it starts with the fact we haven't had an identity for over 20 years. We haven't had an identity since Marino retired. Greer needs to sit down with Bill Zito. Yeah. I don't know if the problem is Greer's brother, was he still the GM of the Sharks? I don't know how that guy's kept a job either. But that's probably the hockey mind he's hitting up, is his own brother. Right? And I believe their father was, I think he was in with the New York Islanders, I think, or something like that, wasn't he? But that's the problem. He's picking the brains of the Sharks GM instead of the winning Florida Panthers GM. Dana Bruce says Steve Ross has cost his team picks more picks than any other owner in professional sport. You want a real one for you? Go look in the mirror, Dana, and you'll find out what he's really cost you. Go look at old pictures of you as a Dolphin fan and go look in the mirror right now and you'll see what he's really cost you. He's cost us something more valuable than picks. He's cost us something more valuable than, roster players. He's cost us a lot of time. That's the issue. Think of how much time we've wasted. That's the problem. Time. You can't get that back. Players, next offseason, you can figure that out. Time is something that once it's gone forever. And that is what he has cost us. And you can go back. Right? Blew things up with Tony Sparano because he went behind his back to try and get Harbaugh. Then what did he do? Oh, well, here's a new deal. Wasn't Sparano gone like 11 months later after the new deal? Whiffed on Philbin. Whiffed on Cameron. Whiffed on Gase. Whiffed on Flores. And now he's whiffing on McDaniel. And this is what it goes back to. I've always talked about this, right? My Penguins, the reason why we had the longest, right? It was broken a couple years ago, but we had the longest professional sports playoff appearance streak for like 16, 18 years. And it was broken. You know why? Because they did the same thing. Now, at least they got championships out of it in Pittsburgh. But the Penguins weren't ready to move off their head coach. Too much of a little country club, right? They won in 2009 after with Bilesma. They allowed Bilesma to stay 3 or 4 years too long instead of cutting it. Then they go back-to-back with Mike Sullivan. Mike Sullivan should have been fired after the first series we lost to the Islanders after, you remember the Capitals head coach, right? Trottier, after Trottier came there and beat us, right? He beat them with the Capitals and then, Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz beat us with the Capitals, and then the next year he came back and beat us with the Islanders. And that is, you should have known right then and there, Sullivan's got to go. And we're the same thing here now, right? Same thing here. And it's not even just the head coach, it's the GM too. This is the problem we're going on with here. We don't know when to cut bait at the right time. We give too many second and third and fourth chances. And by that time, you've wasted the time of the fan base. You've wasted time. Like, think about this. Think of how many great years of Zach Sealer we've wasted. History keeps repeating itself. We wasted Rashad Jones. We wasted Xavier Howard. We wasted Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas. I'm just talking on the defense. We wasted MVP seasons from Ricky Williams. We wasted 1,800-yard seasons from Tyreek Hill. We wasted Tua leading the league in passing. We've wasted all of this. And it's been going on since before this core was here. Think of all the great talent we've wasted. Again, we can't get back time. Wasted great secondary players. Ton of them. Pat Surtain, Sam Madison, Vontae Davidson, Sean Smith. We traded them and wasted the chance to build something special with those two guys. Like, waste. Hell, even Kiko Alonso's best football. Wasted that. Ronnie Brown. Wasted that. Chris Chambers, Randy McMichael. Wasted that. And we used to talk about this a couple years ago with Flores around about Tua getting traded, going somewhere else and balling out. I'm at the point where I wouldn't be shocked. Okay, they move off of Tua this year. Tua goes somewhere else. Tua starts winning playoff games and we're sitting back here being like, are you kidding me right now? Well, we continuously can't win. That wouldn't shock me. That would not shock me at all. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest. Not one bit. We wasted Christian Wilkins. Now, doesn't look very good for him what's going on. He's still not fully healed in Vegas. So, now, would that injury have happened if he was playing with us? You can't say it would have. You also can't say it wouldn't have. But we wasted great years of Christian Wilkins. The effort Teron Armstead gave us, wasted. Devon Achan's amazing rookie season, right? Most yards per carry of any rookie running back ever, wasted. Like, so, I don't know. Again, I if we want to put these cultural issues and who are the root causes of these cultural issues, you got to start at the top with the guys who have been the longest tenured here. And Stephen Ross and Chris Greer, to me, shoulder the majority of the blame. That's just me. Now, Cam Wolfe, he discussed Miami's culture as well on the Insiders on the NFL Network. This is what he had to say regarding the whole thing, and he was talking about Dolphins changing colors and all this kind of cute stuff.
Pressure is more intense on Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins than it's ever been in this era. I've been there almost every day this offseason, and there's so much talk within the players about we're a different team. The culture's changing. The accountability's changing. Now, I've talked to some people in that building. Culture isn't a word they've used as far as their plan within the building, but it's sort of a bridge. They're trying to show that this is a different team. And when I went upon my homework there, I was like, can a Dolphin really change its colors? Turns out Amazon pink dolphins can change colors from a nature standpoint. This Dolphins team is going to be challenged to change its colors from a team that many people who played them thought was soft, thought they were front runners, a team that scored a lot of points but didn't have the toughness in the road. And it was interesting hearing Bradley Chubb, one of their star defenders, when asked, why is this year different? Last year, you guys said we were a different team. He said, well, we were lying last year. We maybe dipped our foot into the changing mentality, but this year we're going all in. I can tell you this, I've watched them in camp. On paper, they look like a team that is less talented, but they are younger, and they're betting on the development with these younger players, new leaders, and the hope that we can do it from the players to change that mentality, but ultimately we're not going to be able to believe.
So I've talked about this, right? Like, the reason why they're going younger is it's easier to get those guys to buy in, right? Because they're going to be hungry, they're going to be willing to throw down for that roster spot, and what you're trying to get out of it is that hunger. And also, it's much easier to change a culture with younger players because what you tell them and what you instill in them, that's all they're going to know at the NFL level. And if you have the right veterans around you that have bought in, it's just going to be easier. And listen, this pink dolphin, that's hilarious, the reference he made there. But you can see the difference, right? Nick Wright and First Things First, they try to negatively spin what Chubb said. You saw Cam Wolfe trying to positively spin it. And I've talked about this. I've said clearly they're going younger because they think that'll be easier way to change the culture over with hungry young players. That, some of these guys like Isaiah Johnson fighting for a corner spot, this could be his only shot to be a starter in the NFL, right? So you're hoping that these guys, the hunger is going to make them lock down spots, but also keep them locked in during the season and not caught up in distractions or anything like that. So, personally, again, I don't know how many times I gotta say it. I gotta see it to believe it. All this talk, that's all nice, but it don't mean nothing if you start off 1-3. It don't mean nothing if you got a losing record by the trade deadline. It doesn't mean anything. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just I know it's going to be a thing that's talked about all off season. But I'm getting to the point where with this culture, enough talking already, and I know Bradley Chubb thought he was saying the right thing with, well, you know, we only dipped our toes in it. We really didn't all in on the culture change. And why were you guys talking about it? You know, one of those things should be, if you were lying about it last year, well then, should you even be talking about it this year? Because I'm from the point of, I wouldn't even be talking about it. If we started winning and people started noticing a change, that's when I would bring it up and be like, yeah, man, well, last year, I don't think a lot of people were bought in. This year, we've kind of bought in more, and look, you can see in the results, blah, 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 blah. So, because again, now you are writing a check that your ass better cash. It's being brought up throughout the media, mainstream media, local media, and this is going to be a thing now. So, writing that check, you better be able to cash it. Speaking about writing checks, though, the Miami Dolphins haven't written one for a cornerback, even though they've tried with guys like Rasul Douglas and stuff. And another one came off the board today as Shaquille Griffin. He's signing back with the Seahawks. Now, Barry Jackson said this. He said, another competent corner comes off the board. Other than making an offer to Rasul Douglas a month ago, offer was rejected, but both sides could circle back. Dolphins told at least 2 other free agent corners that they want to resolve the Ramsey situation first before engaging further. And he says, I'm not sure why. Now, this was something that I brought up, and I even brought it up on X, and now Barry's talking about it, right? When Barry reported that Jair Alexander was one of those free agents they approached but didn't want to make an offer to, I retweeted him and said, this doesn't make any sense. Rasul Douglas was on, because Barry hadn't mentioned this yet. And then when I mentioned it, then Barry started mentioning it. Trust me, I see everything. So, and I notice everything. So, you know, it's not a cap situation. That's what doesn't make sense about this. And it's clearly not a cap situation, right? Like, at all. You know, I mean, they have plenty of cap to sign anyone they want right now. And they're going to have even more when Ramsey comes off the books. Now, could they be waiting to see how much of Jalen Ramsey's contract they need to cover? Sure. But, I mean, the point of the matter is they're just not spending a lot of money this offseason. Where every other offseason, Ross has had no limit. So, I've told you this. Clearly, the bank is not as open. And I told you this, from what I understand, Brandon Shore, he's got a little bit more pull. That's why you don't see the money. They're not out here making it rain like they're in a Rippers club. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Again, we go back to Ross. Brother, if you've given Brandon Shore all this power and the response is, we don't believe in you guys to add more new pieces, show us what you got with what you currently have on the roster, what are we even doing? Like, what are we even doing? Again, wasting more time. That sounds like you're setting up for a season of dead men walking. Unless they happen to win some playoff games. Like, that's where I'm at. And that's another problem I have here. With how you're spending, it shows you have little faith in what they're doing or what they're building. Whereas the first couple of years, you were just throwing money at everything because you had faith in what they were building. Now, because of how last year went, because of how last offseason went with handing out contracts, now it shows you've got no faith in their guidance and what they think is best for the franchise in terms of McDaniel and Greer. So what are we doing? Why are we wasting a year? If you are at that point, should have just cut bait. I don't know what else to say. Should have just cut bait. Honestly. So, I don't know. I just find that very, very interesting. And now, Tyreek Hill, he's singing a little bit of a different tune. He apparently wants to be in Miami now. Check this out.
I want to be in Miami, dog. My mindset is being in Miami. Coach McDaniel, the franchise, the community, they have done a great job of just standing beside who I am as a man, as a player. I don't even got to be the highest paid, man. I just want to win ball games and take advantage of being in this great organization of the Dolphins, dog. Fuck the Bills, though. Always. That's always my mindset, dog. I want to beat them so bad, dog.
This guy keeps talking about the Bills all off season. I hope we do beat them for your sake, Tyreek. But now Tyreek wants to be in Miami. Let me know without letting me know that the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, and the higher ups clearly sat you down and said, "Yo, you need to straighten this out with how you've been talking lately." You know, like again. Guy's out here singing a different tune, but are we really going to dance to it? This is the culture all over again. Show and prove. Now, Tyreek Hill wasn't done. He did say a few extra interesting things about Tua and the Miami Dolphins culture. Check this out.
You know, obviously a lot of talk around Tua. Me, personally, as I sit here being a former quarterback, I think he's the guy for you guys to make it happen. Like, I see a guy who's only continuing to get better, hopefully able to stay healthy, but you know, speak a little bit about him and how it is playing with him, because in my eyes, you know, he's a top 10 quarterback in the league all day, every day.
Of course, bro. Like, his QBR is like #1, but I feel like Tua has gotten better every year as a leader. Ever since Mike came in, Tua has taken hold of, you know what I'm saying, being that franchise quarterback for this team. And I feel like this year he's taking it to another level. You know what I'm saying? The first year was, you know, getting acclimated, getting comfortable with who we were as a team. The second year was finding our identity, and we was like the #1 offense. But this year I feel like Tua has really, you know what I'm saying, grabbed on to being our franchise guy, and he stepped up in ways that we all need him to step up in. You know what I'm saying? He's holding guys accountable. He's making sure guys are, you know what I'm saying, at the right spot, you know what I'm saying, for him. And he's fucking cussing out the old linemen whenever they're not protecting them. So I feel like I'm seeing a different version of Tua, and like, I remember when I was in Kansas City, this is like, bro, I used to see the same thing from Pat. It was a beautiful thing, man. So I'm just grateful to be a part of it.
For sure.
This year, as one of the leaders, dog, I told the guys, like, it's time to change who we are as a team. It's time to change the narrative about we are not able to play in cold weather. We are not a physical team, man. So I'm tired of that narrative, bro. I'm tired of living, you know what I'm saying, behind, you know what I'm saying, like not being able to go to the playoffs and win in Miami, dog, because we got a damn good team. We got a good quarterback. We got a good offensive lineman. And we got some good coaches. And we got some good people in the community who deserve to be a part of that. So I feel like this is the year that we change all of that, dog.
So, again, you know, now Tua's the best quarterback. Now we're showing Tua all this love and everything like that. You know, and again, first of all, the scary thing is he referred to himself as a leader. If that doesn't scare you, I don't know what will. You know, listen, I agree with him. F the Bills. It's F the Bills every day and twice on Sunday, especially when we face them. 110%, hands down. You ain't going to hear no argument from me. All right? That's number one. All right? Number two, again, with this whole culture thing that we're talking about here, with him, right? You know, like, he said it's time to change who we are as a team. It's time to change the narrative. Okay. Well, are you going to quit? Because you didn't help the narrative. Let's be honest. The culture has come under such big of a microscope, and one of the main reasons why is because of you quitting on the team. That made everyone start to question what was being built in Miami. I mean, a lot of people were expecting, after you said that, Ross to come out and take some time, and maybe Mike McDaniel would be fired, but instead, you know, remember, came out and endorsed him right away. So that's number one. And listen, leader, I mean, we're at a point where, bro, just work. I don't know if I'd consider Tyreek Hill a bona fide leader of this team right now with where they're at. Now, I like what he said about Tua, about how Tua's cussing out the offensive linemen whenever they're not doing their job protecting them. Talked about how he's seeing a different version of Tua and how Tua's really grabbed on to being the franchise guy. That's great. That's nice. But again, we go back to the whole trolling stuff. Why were you trying to troll everyone over going back to Kansas City, over leaving Tua off top 5 quarterback lists? I mean, you know, this guy's mood changes like his pair of underwear, you know, like, man, like, we want stability, but, you know, we don't even got stability with your guys' feelings and how y'all are thinking. Now, what Tyreek also said in that sit down was he predicted that the Miami Dolphins are going to face Kansas City in the AFC Championship. And he said Miami Dolphins are taking the AFC. We all know Tua is the best quarterback in the NFL. So, I mean, again, show and prove, brother. Show and prove. Like, he talked about McDaniel in that sit down too, right? You know, he called him one of the best offensive coordinators he's been around. And look what he said. Offensive coordinator. Didn't call him an offensive head coach. Called him an offensive coordinator. Right? Straight up called him an offensive coordinator. Didn't call him a head coach. Said one of the best offensive coordinators I've been around. Ouch. Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Okay? And I'm not even trying to overblow it, but like, damn. You know? That's tough. That is tough stuff, man. Now, I got to show you something, though. You know how we got to find our identity? We got to change? Because, I mean, you'll hear Teron Armstead go up and he'll tell everyone, hey, you know, we're a running team. You know, we're this, we're that. Check this one out. You want a stat that's going to sober you up right now? This is the rate, all right? This is the rate of running back stuff for no gain in short yardage. 44% the Miami Dolphins and New England Patriots. Leading by almost 10%. We lead by 8%. Las Vegas is number 2 at 36. That's terrible. That is so bad. That means almost 50% of the time. Almost 50% of the time. Everyone's being stuffed for no gain in short yardage situations. That's so sad. Like, that is unbelievably sad. Like, I'm impressed with how bad that is. Really, I am. I'm actually impressed with how bad that is. Like, man, what are we doing? This is awful. Like, that is a sobering, especially when you got the talent we've got, like in Achane and Jalen Wright. Like, that shouldn't be happening, man. At all. Like, that is like damn near inexcusable. That's my problem with this. Like, we've got this guy just saying that Mike McDaniel is one of the best offensive coordinators I've been around, blah, 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 blah. And again, this falls on coaching and roster construction. You know, like, who said it was a good idea to have Eichenberg and Robert Jones as suitable replacements for Isaiah Wynn and Robert Hunt? It was a terrible call. And I've talked about this. Whoever made the call, whoever agreed with the call, whoever endorsed the call, I would question them and whether they should even be on the team, even be coaching the team right now. I don't know. I think we're good at guard. James Daniels and Jonah Savaianaya, we're good at guard. The problem is James Daniels going to be good? Is he going to look like the guy he was? He was playing awesome before he had the Achilles injury. But again, this all comes back. We come back to who are the root cause of the you know, cultural issues. Yes, I blame McDaniel more than any player. But I blame Greer more than McDaniel, and I blame Ross and Greer more than McDaniel. But McDaniel still shoulders of blame. Coming back to that run, like, how can you try to pass off that we're a run team, and that's what you are in short yardage? That's bad. Like that's sad. So, anyways, guys, smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new. Appreciate each and every one coming through. All right, I'm going to catch you guys on the next one. Until then, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. And we'll catch y'all on the next one. Until then, love y'all, appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all again.